Hey yo, Dr. Brianna Whiteside here, and welcome to the Octavia Butler mixtape course. We are jumping into Butler's third series. Please go ahead and like the video. Hey y'all, we're jumping into Butler's third series, right? The Xenogenesis trilogy, or what it was renamed to be, Lilith's Brood. And if y'all notice on the Substack, when I put it up on the syllabus, did y'all see like the alien representation of the series? I always think it's fascinating about print culture, right? That's a fascinating thing about print culture, that when this series was written and published in the 90s, that they were marketed to basically sci-fi readers. And now I think I got my copy back in like 2000. I was in my master's program, so probably 2013. Yeah, 2013, I got this copy. And so I don't know what copy you all have for the discussion, but I always find it fascinating the ways in which covers change over time. Y'all, if y'all want to come up here to chat about, the TikTok. What the heck? What the hell? Hold on. I hit something on here and I think TikTok didn't. Okay, there we go. If y'all want to come on up and join the live discussion tonight, you know what to do. Hit those two people, those two guests at the bottom. Kudos to you all for sticking around. We've been at this a long time, y'all. We have been at this a long time, and I think this is the ninth book we've read by Butler. And so you all can teach Octavia Butler course if you want to. All right. But as we wait for some people to come on and some more people to join, come on up, y'all, if y'all want to talk about this, because now we're in the alien, right? We're in the alien universe. We are in the, what is this? Okay. We're in the alien universe. We are kind of where scholars start to talk about post-humanist. I like to think of the form of artificial intelligence. That's immediately where my mind goes. But I think that it is very interesting to think about them as these forms of intelligence, though they are gene traders, particularly because of where we are in society today, right? Where we are tethering ourselves more closely to artificial intelligence. And I'm always interested in the trade-off, right? Yeah, so Valerie says, when Googling Lilith, I read that there are some themes of Lilith being like the Jewish mythical Lilith. Yeah, I don't even think I'm reading that part. Let me see. I think Butler does comment on that in this Conversations with Octavia Butler, that she does say that it does come from mythology. I don't think I was prepared to read it though. Give me 1 second to look at it. Please like the live as we wait for me to find this part. And I'm so excited. And we need some more people up here. We need some more people. What's going on? Where y'all at? We was only off 1 week. Where y'all at? Me and Tina just can't be up here. Okay. Hey Tina, how you doing? Let me see. I'm trying to find the Lilith reference. I'm sorry, Valerie. I do want to read it. If not, if I can't find it, I would just drop it on the Substack later today or before class next week. And because it is, it is there. But this is the part that I want to read. Okay, Black Stupid Kid. Come on up here to my some. I don't like the sound of my voice. Y'all better cut it out. In the club, we all fam. All right. I'm reading from a interview by Butler. Let me see. 2000. In 2000, Juan Williams interviews Butler. And he says, here's the question. In your Lilith trilogy, the folks that you call the Oankali tell Lilith that humans have an inherent conflict in them, which, if they had not intervened, would have led to human extinction. And I'm wondering if you believe that must be a typo. And I'm wondering if you believe that. If in fact that's your voice speaking, do you believe that the conflict exists, and do you see a means of managing it? So of course he's talking about the human contradiction that I referenced when we were reading Survivor. And that contradiction is when the Oankali are speaking to Lilith, talking about the tension between hierarchy and intelligence. And so here is Butler's remark. She says the conflict, by the way, or the contradiction is that human beings are intelligent, but also that they are hierarchical, and that their hierarchical tendencies are a lot older than their intelligence, and the hierarchical tendencies are sometimes in charge. And I emphasize this by having the story begin after a terrible war that has wiped out a good portion of humanity. The hierarchical tendencies have obviously been in charge at that point, and we've just about one-upped ourselves to death. Do I think that's true? I suspect that it might be. Not necessarily exactly like that, but that we do seem sometimes much more interested in one-upping each other, one-upping one country over the other, than in doing ourselves some long-term good. I think that's very relevant. I think that's very relevant for today, one-upping, right? Mr. Me Too, as one of the artists said back in the day. Y'all know, and I dropped this in the Substack, and y'all know I was not on the Lauren train. I just want to know, because I'm going to start in early, did y'all see that the Owen Collie said that humans would not have been able to survive in space? Did y'all read that part? Okay. Thanks, Sir Maxim. Thank y'all. I just wanted to be clear because y'all was on me.
Well, I don't know. Well, I read that part of it, but I thought, well, hell, they want a gene splice. So who the hell knows? That could be an ulterior motive right there. That's what I thought.
Tina, don't try to explain that away.
I'm saying they can say all that, but whatever. They had ulterior motive. You can't trust them. I'm sorry.
Taichi, what you got? Because Tina finna defend Lauren down.
I'm going with the aliens.
I'm with you.
They said y'all are not, well, y'all choose not to be smart enough in order to adapt enough to use your intelligence to survive out here. We saw in Survivor they got taken out. Like, it's just, things just keep repeating itself. No. No.
I'm with you. I'm with it. Delilu, am I saying this right?
It says Dalilu. Can you hear me?
Dalilu.
But my name is Dahlia. But it says Dalilu.
Okay. What
You could
up?
say either one.
Okay.
I figured that her whole space exploration thing was going to fall apart. So even though I really like Lauren, um I didn't really think that was gonna work out just because of how human beings are. Um Yeah, and then they confirmed it for me. I thought that was interesting though, because she wrote this before she wrote the parables, right?
No. This is
Or
after.
is this after? She wrote it after?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure which came
Well, let
first.
me say this. She was drafting this series as she was writing the parables. So the parables came first, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay.
No, I'm lying.
I thought it said 1987.
Yeah, this is first.
Yeah.
But in order of narrative plot, this comes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So I thought that was really fascinating. And, just as we're getting to know Lilith, and we're seeing that she's trying to kind of resist in little ways. You see that she gets more and more into this idea of like choosing people and looking at their different traits and who's going to be good for the awakening and whatever. So I don't know, it seems as though the author like keeps with that theme, like how do we place people in the right ways, how do we choose people for certain things, and like
Yeah,
can we make civilization actually work
yeah,
and control in that way?
yeah. Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and I'm still looking for that reference where she talks about Adam, but Adam Lilith being Adam's first wife. But I think that is important, the point that you're bringing up, because the fact that they task Lilith with the responsibility of waking up the first human, she is the matriarch now, right? She is the beginning of this new line of genetically altered and modified beings, and as the mother, potentially operating in divine feminine. I don't even know. But it is crucial that she stands at the head of of this creation and this creation cycle. So they do put a lot of responsibility on her. Which y'all should have stopped when she was about to wake up Tate. If y'all read on, do not say anything else. Okay? Because y'all be spoiling it in the chat. But overall, what y'all think? What y'all think about this series?
I like it already. Immediately, yes. I'm here for the science. Yeah, you guys know what I'm here for. I'm here for the science. I'm here for how they are adapting or using the technology that, or should I say technology? I don't even know how to describe it, but the inner workings of cancer to further their progress. That's so freaking cool. Somebody talked about Casper in here. I'm talking about CART cells, what we are developing now, what we're trying to implement now, but without any genetic fallback, without any graft versus host, without any like sort of fight from our system, how they're able to do that. I'm just here for the science.
Okay.
Love
I'm
it.
interested in what you think about their print memories. You know, those.
And I'm getting to that too. Wow, diabolical, but so freaking cool because you can't write and such great minds here, such great mind, Butler, such great mind. Because how do you destroy that? When it's spread apart so many different things, how do you destroy that print? Like it's not a disc, it's not something to be like copied or written out. So how do you really destroy that? They did really good. She did really good work. I like it. I like it. I want to see how that develops further. Um, Sinister, diabolical. I don't know that I necessarily agree with this, but the science is cool, and I'm
Yeah,
here for the science.
I'm here for that. I can take that. All right, who
This
else?
this was the first. This was my first read for Octavia Butler, and the book that the paperback that I have of it is a white woman opening up a cocoon, and I remember that's what the cover looks like. So the I got it from Third World Press, which is a
Oh, I see.
bookstore in the Chicago area, and they told me they're like, don't look at the cover. This is something completely different. You will really like it.
Yeah.
And I remember when I read it back then, and I'm bringing this up because my viewpoint has changed quite a bit.
Okay.
Was that I didn't feel I was so excited that there was a black woman writer and that she was writing about black women. And so any of the characters or did I identify with her or did I think like I didn't I guess I was in a space where I was not capable of being critical of the character.
Yeah.
I was not capable. But this class has made me critical of characters that I just like made me go deeper than I was anticipating. So I appreciate that. It's interesting. I think that I like this book. Again, I liked it then, and I think I read it in a day when I first got it. But I think that this part of the book where she's going through, and you know, there's so much conditioning. Like I'm like what Tachi talks about how great it is with the science and like this gene splitting or whatever else. Like I told you guys before, I'm a big Trekkie. I'm a big person who's into sci-fi. So all that is fascinating. But I have to say, my bias comes in that most of the time when you're having these stories about all of these different species and everything else, humans are right there. They're not in a subservient way. And in this, so far, I know it's going to be different, but so far, where we are now, it's not. There isn't a. I just kept saying this is probably Doro's goal in life because he's getting what he wants. I mean, these aliens are pretty much like, hey, we can fix all this. We can make you the perfect specimen for what we need you to be.
Here we go. Here we
I'm
go.
sorry. You guys exactly.
Here we go. I'm
And
not
you
gonna touch it. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna move on because we're gonna be on there all day. Who else? Who else want to go? Shanandi, hey.
Hey, so for me, I am really struggling. I'm going to try to stick with it because I mean, I love Octavia Butler's works. So I'm gonna. This reminded me that I'm really not a science fiction girly. This is like, oh, Cheryl, just read it. Just read what's on the page.
Yeah.
It's going somewhere.
Yeah.
So I can't say I'm enjoying it right now.
Okay. That's fair.
I'm struggling, but I'm going to stick with it because I trust the author, and I'm reading it based on her previous works that
Okay.
I've read. So I'm gonna stick with it, also because I'm not a person who doesn't. If the book has to be really awful for me not to finish it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so far I the world building is it's a lot. But I'm gonna stick with it. So that's my opinion
This
so
was a
far.
slow burn. The first part was a slow burn. It's like,
It's slow burn, and it's also again science fiction. I'm trying to expand my imagination, and just because I read visual. I'm a visual reader. I imagine things. Some people just read the words on the page. I actually try to envision what I'm reading. So I'm gonna stick with it. So we'll see. But I just wanted to give my opinion.
no, I totally get that. And the reason why I want to encourage you to do so is because if you plan on reading fledgling is such a slow burn in the first part of the book that it is it's very exploratory. Like we're in the mind of a narrator who's learning everything again. And so if this slowness and Lilith awakening and not too much happening, but you're learning as she's learning is bothering you, I just want to caution you that if we read fledgling, you're gonna feel the same way.
Okay. So I
Okay.
mean, honestly, if this was my first introduction
Oh,
to Butler, I probably would not have gone further.
I feel like
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I get it.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to say something?
I'm not usually like I'm not usually as like a science fiction person, but I was really I found myself intrigued by, I don't know, just like some of the things that they were saying. I'm a cancer survivor, so like what they were talking about with the cancer and like things that I'm learning about different drugs and therapies that's developing and ideas that people are having. I don't know. I just found it really interesting. I found Lilith interesting. I found the weird alien. I don't usually like aliens that much,
Mm-hmm.
but I found myself strangely drawn to. I forget the name of. Starts with an N.
Nakan,
How do you, yeah.
the
I
Uloy.
felt. Yeah, the Olu. I found myself like both repulsed and drawn in by their whole society and like way of organizing things and
Yeah.
trying to visualize like the organic walls and how that goes. So yeah, I like it, even though that's not typically I don't go for like other world science fiction. I'll go as far as usually like it's this world and maybe there's like a few things different, but I like it.
That's fair. Melanie, you got a new
I
name up here?
I got a new name because Mello. I think Mello because of the French spelling kind of was confusing, but Melanie is my name. Mello is people would when I lived in Louisiana they would call me that. She's so back, babes. Oh, it feels so good to be back. I miss y'all terribly. Work has been anyway. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this book. I love sci-fi. My very first genre of like ever reading was sci-fi. I'm a science fiction girly through and through to the death of me. And I will say, I agree. This was a very slow burn. It was a very slow burn. And I actually enjoyed it because what Octavia Butler does uniquely is she doesn't subvert a genre, but she does write in a new light. And And I say this as like someone who has read quite a number just in this year of science fiction books that follows the formula. Her her writing Lilith and giving us an experience of like, we're in this alien ship, we don't know anything, and we have this alien who doesn't answer questions. A lot of times in writing, the writers tend to extrapolate, like they have to tell you, they have to like do that exposition to move the story along. And we don't get that with Jada. They sit in silence. And she makes a statement at one point where she's like, more humans should do that. We don't know. Like the slow burn and the fear is that we have no clue what's happening. Our perspective is her perspective. And if you think about if you were to be abducted by an alien, what would that be like? You'd be lost and confused most of the time. And you wouldn't know anything for a very long time. Yeah, it's good. And so then what I did read ahead a little bit, but just staying to part one, what I also appreciated was that we only get a bit of the background, but it's enough to pique our interest. You know what I mean? Like, we know the world ended, but we don't get like the flashbacks or like it's not too much. It's just enough to say this person is here now and they're having to navigate what they do barely remember in this troubling environment with this being or these beings who will not give them any, like, will not broach any subject with them too much. And that is what makes science fiction good, because we know as we progress in the story, we're going to get the answers to our question. We're going to have the characters built out, and we're going to experience the fear that makes the alien abduction trauma or the alien abduction style worth it. Because it's like this genre is meant to like really dig deep into what humanity can experience and what makes us human. And that's why it's my favorite.
Yeah, I think that part of the terror that everyone may be starting to sense or starting to creep in the beginning was the fact that, remember, she went through a series of awakenings. So when we finally see her speaking, remember that they said, hey, the first time we woke you up, it wasn't a success. So we put you back to sleep, right? And so every time she's asleep. She's not aging. She's still the same age. And then I think they wake her up 50 years later. So she should be like 75 or in her 70s, right? But because when you're asleep, you don't age, you don't have any memories, they're doing these experiments, we don't know what's going on. And I did find the quote that Valerie brought up. I mean, not the quote. I did find the passage that Valerie brought up about her name. And I do want to read it because I think it's important, especially given the fact that this is the protagonist's name and this series was named after Lilith. So here's what Butler says in a 1988 interview. She says, in Dawn, I named one of the characters Lilith, who according to mythology was Adam's first wife, and who was unsatisfactory because she wouldn't obey him. Brewer's Dictionary of Phrase and Fable defines Lilith first as a Babylonian monster. I wonder whether her terrible reputation results from her refusal to take Adam's orders. So yes, I have a lot of fun with names and references. I like to use names that work with who my characters are. For instance, according to its roots, Blake, and she's referring to Blake from Clay's Ark, Blake suggests white or black, and Macelin is a mingling. Until I've settled on a character's name, and I frequently use books to help me, I can't really work with that character. So let me just stop there because she was about to go into something else. So that provides context that biblically, according to mythology, Adam had a wife before Eve. She did not obey him. So therefore she was cast out of the Garden of Eden and unsatisfactory. So then that is when we have Eve. I saw Eve. Someone said in a chat, why didn't she name her Eve? And that's why.
Good point. No, I have a lot of weeks of catching up, of yapping. Can I make a point that Lilith is my favorite? It doesn't matter. There's a book that we should all read. I'll write in the chat about Lilith and like her viewpoint. We know that Lilith was married with a husband and a son, and she survived and they didn't. One. And we don't know what their relationship was like, if she was a good mom or if she wasn't a good mom, but we know she feels guilty about it. And now we know that she's in this new world, or this confines of this ship, and she's going to have to do something akin to procreating. We know that from just the back page of the book. And I think also when we talk about naming conventions in books, it's going to be interesting to see how Lilith pushes back or fights against or like is difficult. She's going to be a very difficult human, but she's going to serve a purpose because Lilith got us Eve, which got us where we are now. And so I bet, having not read too far ahead, that Lilith is going to be that again, where she's going to fight back, but she's going to give us the future because we know there's 2 more books that come, right? But in her fighting back, what does she do? Because the problem with the way people write Lilith is that she just wasn't a submissive woman. She was a solid, fully developed person, but she just wasn't submissive. And I bet my bottom dollar that this Lilith is going to be the same exact way. And she's going to be someone that matters in the grand scheme of things, but she'll probably either be forgotten or pushed to the side or denigrated or. And that's my thought.
Y'all are in for a sweet treat. Okay. Anybody else wanna say anything? Give anything? No? Okay. I want to, let's go to the Substack. One thing I'm very, very interested in, and I think it's because we're in this current moment. I'm interested in the future of medicine and the partnership with artificial intelligence and the Owen Collie. And so if you're on a Substack following along, it is the second set of questions. Matter of fact, let's start with number 1. Let's start with rethinking beginnings in xenogenesis. She says, free us from AI. No, it's here. We here. So it says Octavia Butler originally titled the Lilith's Brood trilogy Xenogenesis, a name that fuses xeno, meaning foreign, strange, or other, with genesis, origin or beginning. The title itself suggests an unfamiliar or radical new beginning, one that challenges traditional, often Western and religious understandings of creation and human continuity. Considering today's intersecting crisis, climate collapse, AI integration, mass migration, and social upheaval, do you believe we are in need of a new beginning? And if so, what might that look like beyond the frameworks we've inherited?
And this one is going to be even quicker. One, Octavia Butler had mentioned in a previous, I can't remember which novel we were reading, where she said that like society gave us this like thinking cognition, but we are all based at the end of it. It was like, I think wild seed or whatever, but it basically, that same sentence was brought up again by one of the tentacled aliens, where they're like, you've got 2 genes fighting against each other. You've got the hierarchical one and you've got the one that's like, I guess, primed to succeed or something, and they cannot exist together. They cannot coexist. And so I think now and with what Octavia's writing is that in order for us to succeed as a species, we have to like supplant the hierarchical gene, the one that states that we need to have order and be on top or whatever, for the one that's like, for us to continue, we improve or progress or whatever. And when we talk about that from an AI or like a medicinal standpoint, that would mean we'd have to reimagine the way in which we live currently. And there was this TikTok I saw just the other day that said, when you pick up a language, like the colonizer's language is focused on I, me, selfish, whereas more indigenous or non-European languages, they talk more around, like they speak better about love, about community, about, instead of it being land, which is kin, it's now property. So if we keep that thought of like the way the language shapes the culture, which shapes the society, and we say in this new world, how that would look, one, it would be, we'd have to let go of that hierarchical state. And 2, it would be, we'd have to reimagine the way we even speak to each other, the way in which we engage with each other, which means we'd have to reimagine the way in which we care for each other, which is really the base of medicine. And what we'll see eventually is that those aliens, because they take on the beings that they collect, they've kind of gotten rid of that, and they speak about it and we, their pronouns, their usage of words shows that they think of things as themselves, but also as something to trade and honor. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I'm very interested in the contradiction that you are referencing, because I do think there's some truth to it. But then I think back to how Lauren's movement was largely intellectual, right? It was a largely intellectual movement, and how that has certain limitations. So and we've also seen how hierarchy works also in Pattern Master, right? I mean, the Patternist series. So I don't know which one we should go with, or if we should continue to live in the in between of those two things, because we've seen it, the intelligence kind of fail a little bit. We've seen the hierarchical nature of us if it fell a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think that when we're solely moving in the intellectual space and we're bartering genes and everything is a trade, I think we do lose the humanity of it all. I think we lose like some nuance there where we actually, because everything is just matter of fact, right? This is the end goal. Everything is transactional when we're solely intellectual. Not saying that I'm for hierarchical, because that also is our demise. But yeah, I think it's hard to figure out what that would look like without taking some time, because again, these are the two realms that we know. You need to go outside what we know in order to create something new. And so being in the confines of these two and just trying to, wield something that works in between the two when none of them might work solely, that's my problem. That's why I don't really have an answer to that question. I think we should be thinking outside. I think there should be an amalgam of a lot of things, but not just one or the other.
That's fair. We still have time in this world, so maybe I should ask that next week when we're done. Tina.
So, okay, I'm sorry about that. I find the way that they talk about the two genes and talk about stuff like that, I find the aliens to be hypocritical, because hold with me now. Okay, so the community they have set up communities, right? And they tell you there's a woman, there's a female, there's a male, there's this non-sex entity that's there. They talk about how they select, and they talk about like different parts of like who's gonna do what, who's gonna do whatever. It may not be as structured as like a king at the top, or one person rules everybody or whatever else, but it is very much structured in a way that talks about some sort of hierarchy, because the non-sex entity or non-gender entity has all this power. It has all this power, and it kind of dictates what happens within that space. So I just found that to be I found the fact that they're making this, saying that this is a downfall, and I'm not disagreeing, but they also have it. The other thing for me from Octavia Butler, what I was thinking about is that it takes a village. So that point, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village. Like there are communal scenarios where we all raise our kids together. We all do all this together. Like we're tied together. Like that is the nature of, frankly, Black folks in terms of how we function within community. Community becomes really, really super important. And I think that she's always trying to recreate that. In each one of the books, there is a sense of we have to come together. Even when she's talking about now going down to Earth, she's talking about the possibilities of starting a community or being able to do something. So I think that when Octavia was writing this, there's always a slant towards communal representation as opposed to individualism. That keeps coming out over and over and over again to me in all of her books.
Yeah, and I think that there are classes of the Owen Collie as well, right? When he's talking to her about the ship and how one class of Owen Collie will go on this ship, and then another will go on the next ship, and then one will go on. They're growing another ship for the other class of the Owen Collie. They are very hierarchical, and the Uloi, we don't have a whole lot of information about it now, but it is the third sex. It is the connector between the Owen Collie and in the human. It will be the thing that survives in the third space to connect to. I'm just stop there. It's important. They're experimenting with it. And it is still foreign to them as well because it does have a lot of agency that the Owen Collie do not have. And of course, they are trying to keep it in place, keep it in line because it is the most human-like in a lot of ways.
And I wanted to point out the fact that I cannot pronounce his name without reading it. But the who?
The conch?
Yes. So he also pointed out the fact that the Oloi have an unhealthy obsession. It's the same obsession we saw in the in Earthseed and stuff like that, but they have an unhealthy obsession with humans and they're allowed to run with it unchecked, which if it was truly communal, someone would be like, hey, simmer down. We can't really do this. We can't really do that. And then what's her name? The main Oloi one, not her daughter, Nakaji's mom.
Something
Yeah,
Khadijah.
her.
Khadijah, yeah.
Her, Khadija, right. The way she even goes about like her experiments and her thing, like, just manipulate her. You're taking too long. Like, or just do this. What's going on here? Like, why? And she's like always pushing her daughter to do things kind of like in an inhumane way. None of this really seems communal or seems like people have an option or seems like, people can operate independently of the thoughts of Oloi because they're so scientific and advanced in the things that they can do with their tentacles as opposed to everyone else's. That doesn't sit right with me, but cool science.
Yeah, I think we're teetering into the realm of consent. And I see a lot of people in the chat referencing consent. Like, at what point are we pushing the boundaries of consent here? Because we do know that once Lilith wakes up, they've already operated on her, right? They've already removed the cancer and they told her she had a special, I think, talent for it, meaning it ran in her family. And there are those moments where Butler kind of maybe encourages us to think that this is okay as long as you're saving a life. But then it completely gets distorted. And so I'm wondering, like, what do y'all think about consent? And I do have something specific before.
But is it like, does it matter? No, I think it matters. But like the question, the thought experiment is, does it matter? Because even Lilith recognizes that at some point she's an animal. We do this to animals all the time. We spay and neuter. Bob Barker said, spay and neuter your animals, get them off the streets. And we did. We never asked them if they wanted to be that. I just seen TikTok where they did a smushmortion on a cat with the kittens in her and they spayed her. Like, you know what I mean? Like and the vets in the comments are like, yeah, we do this all the time. So like, I think if you take it from the perspective of these aliens are seeing us as Bob Barker sees the animals, like we got to treat them without their consent, then it makes sense. You know what I mean? Because yes, I think it's in the back of the book, like on the explainer, it's like these aliens have to breed or like trade with primitive beings, so they consider us primitive. So there will never be consent because that's not how we view consent, even as humans. So we can presume that the aliens will also feel the same way on whether or not they're going to wake us up and ask us the question and give us the liability waiver. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, correct. And I think that someone said they snatched them off the street. So then we have to ask, like, did they save humanity at that point? Because there was a war, and the Earth, according to the Owen Collie, we don't know if it's true, but the Earth is uninhabitable, right? You can't live here. A war broke out. I know Butler was referencing this nuclear war from the Reagan administration. But they did save humanity.
Yeah, so I feel like with the Owen Collie that they fundamentally like misunderstand humans. And I think a big part of that is with this whole like evolution thing, because I mean, we've seen in every book by Butler what she's basically saying is that in order to survive, we must evolve. Things must change. We saw that very clearly in the Parable series. Like, they developed a whole religion around change.
Yeah.
Humans do not want to do that.
Yeah.
And I was really curious. I wish that there was more text about like how other species integrated with the Owen Collie and how they reacted to like being together. Because I wonder if they were as hesitant as the humans are being. Because I mean, history tells us like humans would rather die than evolve. And like they do talk about that a little bit in terms of like the mass offings of the people, but like I feel like the Owen Collie like saw that and was like, oh, that's just because it was like really, really bad. Like once they heal from all the psychological damage, it won't be like that. But it's like, no, this is like in our DNA, like it is written within us. And they see that too. They're like, there's so much life and so much death, like within a human body. And I think a lot of that has to do with we would rather have our tradition, our history stay as it is and no longer be here than leave that behind and evolve into something new. But the way forward, there's only new. There's only evolution. And that's what the Owen Collie know to be true.
I don't think we're that much different though, because I was trying to put it in the chat, but you know, you have a character limit. We used to do this to other people before we started suing. So in the medical field or in the operating table, if I was there, let's say I was there to take out your cancer and I saw something else growing. The thought was I should take that out too because it's bad. They're just doing what they know. Like, hey, I'm seeing something wrong with you. I should take that out because it's bad. Consent shouldn't be needed because I'm helping you, right? But then things started going awry, which I think inevitably in this book it will. Or there's this ethics question about like, well, what if I want that to be there? What if I should have a right to have that bad thing in me or to be notified that you're doing something? So I think, again, the problem with operating purely in the scientific is yes. I think that they, to answer your question, I don't think they really saved anyone. It was for a purpose. They need to be trading with inferior people to survive. But I think how they're marketing it is that I do something for you and you're doing something for me, and I am curing you. I'm helping you. You're living longer. You're getting that collagen restoration. You're doing all of these things. Why wouldn't you be content with what I'm giving you? Why wouldn't you want to trade something back with me?
But
So
you know,
again, yes, not everything is altruistic, but that was our thought. And so I don't know that they're fundamentally misunderstanding us because some of us had the same thought previously.
I was literally going to say there is no altruism anywhere in the universe for anything. We don't do things out of the kindness of our hearts, humans or aliens alike. So they're doing it because at one point Lilith said, like, where's your home planet? And Jared, I'm going to call him Jared because he went to Jared's. Jared was like, oh, it's not there anymore. So, like, if they recognized they could not have evolved or progressed, they needed to go somewhere else. That began their escapade of traversing the entire known universes. And so they're doing it because they have to. It's almost like a parasitic relationship, but I mean, that's a bad one. A very interesting symbiotic relationship between not the host, but like between two beings, one knowing the full extent of what needs to happen or will happen, and the other being excluded from that knowledge. And so I 100% agree. Like, they're getting rid of the bad, but they're priming us for the cooking. Like, you got to cut the fat if you want to have a good tri-tip or a brisket. So they're not eating us, but they're still needing us. They need us to progress, and we may not have needed them. Humanity is likely always going to fall. Any sci-fi, any book outside of science fiction will tell you that we are, like someone else said, predestined to not succeed for long. And this book mentions it. So yeah, they staved off the inevitable. And to what extent, because we don't know what will happen when you combine this more advanced, more intelligent alien species with this species that exists to be its own self-destruction. You feel me?
You.
So
Black Stupid Kid.
So one of the things that I was thinking about is like, reading all this science fiction stuff that I read is that these aliens supposedly came in after the war and they rescued, quote unquote, rescued survivors. So they have, but there was no consent to the rescue. So humans, whether or not they would have made it for another century or another 50 years or whatever else, they were still surviving. They didn't say that, they didn't come in and say your planet was you could not live there. Everybody was, like they were. She said, I survived the war. I was a survivor. And so they came in when there would be little to no resistance, and they took the people. And then when they started experimenting, looking for genes or something that they could basically utilize, the cancer, and one of the reasons they kept coming back to her, that cancer was a beautiful thing. They said this could help us maybe grow other limbs, do all kinds of other stuff. This is like it's like the helo, like the helo gene. It was such and that's what I thought about, like, from a cancer standpoint, that this cancer had properties from a gene standpoint that were fantastic for them. And they basically created the Ulus. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but they created that third alien thing so that they could experiment with that cancer. How else can they? I mean, they didn't just like take the cancer out and throw it away. They were like, "Oh no, we got the jackpot." What's his name, Cart. They was like, "Okay, man, this is this is a really good thing to have." So I find that's why I don't right now. I'm in the like I don't trust them. Like I said before, when I read this before, I had different eyes, but reading it now, I'm just like there was no consent. And we have to take their word that the earth was just horrible.
Yeah, I think I totally agree, right? We don't have any proof. The world is inhabitable. There's all this radioactivity. It's just unsafe, unnecessary, and it is largely trying to regrow itself, right? But in reference to medicine, in reference to the HeLa cells, which are in my notes from the archive right under the Xenogenesis trilogy, because Butler is studying it, she says, first of all, she says, where is that? She says, okay, I can't find it. But here's another quote. She says, HeLa cells as opening the apparent possibility that a cancer can confer immortality and death, may also confer immortality instead of death. So ultimately, they did want to study the cancer. They did want to study the talent for cancer because it can make them immortal in a lot of ways, right? And I think there was a quote somewhere that I had bookmarked in these notes where she says that they're going to use cancer to kind of like recreate us in some type of way. Not sure how, but she's very interested in cancer. She's very interested in medicine, and she's very researched on these topics. We see her kind of work through them a little bit when we saw Kira, who was struggling with leukemia slightly, but now she's going to be exploring it quite in depth because it's very important, I guess. Black Stu Kid, did you want to say something?
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay.
I was going to ask, so what about, what's his name, Paul?
Paul Titus?
Yeah.
What about
That rapist?
Okay,
Yes,
wait.
rapist.
We're gonna have to say rapist because
Rapist. That rapist. Let's not.
terrible man.
I want to go back to the cancer cells because I want to see. I want to know how what she. The problem with cancer is that it doesn't stop growing unless the host dies, right? It doesn't have apoptosis. It's not capable. It shuts off all your checkpoints. So how would you be able to recreate a human from that? Like you give you a glob of cells.
I was gonna say I was thinking that it was more like they take the way in which it does the thing and mimic it. Do you know what I mean? So
Right, but how
like,
do they get it to stop?
well, now that is above our mental and human pay grade. We cannot imagine. They probably figured it out if they know how to make walls open by you touching them, or plants to like have the cilia that like, do you know what I mean? So perhaps they would have, and I think we're far off because we're not the brightest right now, but I'm sure that if given enough time and energy and funding, we could figure out the same way those aliens have figured out how to make a human out of the process in which cancer grows, and is one of the few things in this world besides like the taxiderm that's like immortal truly. Do you know? So
Also, in Butler's note, she's saying that cancer cells can be redirected. So, in some type of, and I'm looking at her.
yeah, but the redirection, I get
It
I
just
get
makes
what
it
it's just,
grow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
makes
yeah.
it
So the
grow. I know
redirection
what she's
just
talking
makes
about.
it grow.
Yeah,
It doesn't like, okay, the reason why we have 5 fingers is because apoptosis happened to cut all the
exactly.
rest of the dead cells off so we can form digits. So the thing is that if you don't know how to do that, if you don't have anything in place to stop its growth, it's just going to keep growing.
Which is why hair and nails, particularly after death, is so fascinating.
Right.
So
Let me get y'all in a little bit, and this may be getting into part two, but I think we should put it in our pocket.
Okay.
In her note,
Just curious.
no, it's all good. In her note, she says, through refinement suggested by human cancer, the ooloi have enabled constructs to regenerate lost limbs and have given them a potential for remarkably long lives. So, according to Butler, the human cancer, they need the cancer in order to be able to regenerate lost limbs and give them the ability of longevity of life.
but also, my thing is, why would they need humans for that? If they've traveled the known universe or universes, I'm pretty sure they have run across other beings that are immortal, um, other beings that know how to be immortal without having to leverage a genetic makeup that is essentially death
So
incarnate.
I think you're gonna get more information on them interacting with other species in part two.
Because those species are the tri-tips and we're the fat. Got it.
All right. Let's see how much. Okay. All right. Let's go to the subject. Do y'all got anything else before we go there? Because we're already in the medicine one. I'm very interested in. I'm interested in AI. I've always been. I'm a tech girl. I'm a heavy investor in AI and tech. And so it says, in Don, the Owen colleagues' ability to detect and eliminate cancer at a cellular level presents a provocative model of advanced bioengineering. They tell Lilith, you had a growth, a cancer, we got rid of it, and explain there was a human physician with us. She only watched and commented on what my relative did. Given that contemporary medicine continues to grapple with cancer as one of the most complex diseases of our time, how might the Oankali serve as a metaphor for our evolving relationship with artificial intelligence and biotechnology in healthcare? And then the second question is, considering their ability to induce the body to reabsorb the cancer, can we envision a future in which AI does more than assist doctors, perhaps even surpass them?
I guess I can speak.
I was going to say, you go first because I, as someone who works with AI, hate it. So I will let some others go before I speak my truth.
Okay. So I've my group, for those who don't know, I am a physician, that my group has held off long. And when we do use AI, we use them as scribes. We don't use them for assistance. Now, there's different things. Like if you go to surgery, we do have robotics, but they don't think on their own. What they are engineering and what is that company's name? Not Meditech. Something. So there's this company, they have like patents for like 20 years out. They've invented everything we can probably think of already. They're just trying to get it to work. But what they are trying to do is have them, again, progress and start thinking on their own with something as a supervisor, which Octavia has delineated here. My problem is that when she wrote in here, I think the elderly doctor was more fascinated that she couldn't do what she needed to do, so she couldn't give that much input because she was just taken aback by how how evolved this species is and what they could do with tentacles, rather than her being like the attending on the case, if that makes any sense. So she didn't provide much input. They were just like, okay, this is what we're doing. Any questions? And like, nope, you're doing great. That's not where we're at now. But that is the fear, right? That once we get them to basically go through all the algorithms, know what we know, look at what we need to look at, that they can do some of like the scrump work, like the level 4 traumas, the very, very low minute cases that we get, I don't know, PAs to do now. That's what their hope is. Problem is, one, I don't think we're there yet, but if we do eventually get there, there is an art to the science, and you have to know there's nuances everywhere. I don't think that AI can pick up on nuance. So things can and will go wrong. I don't think you should formally be replacing anybody. But that is the fear.
Y'all, please continue to like the live. Melanie. Melanie.
Sure. Oh God, I needed this moment. So for those who don't know, I work at a tech company, and we are really, really, really pushing AI. However, what is not being said with this push, not just from my company, but everyone is talking about it, is that in order for artificial intelligence, especially like large language models, anything related to what you see with the ChatGPT, it needs good data. We do not have good data. Good data requires you to have clean data. Clean data means that anything that is outdated, like birthdays that are wrong, names that are misspelled, or if you take it even a step further and say, and I don't know too much about medicine, but if I say Advil solves cancer or cures cancer enough times and it's shown in the data pool, that means that model will say to you, it will give you an answer-shaped object that says Advil cures cancer. That's a hallucination. A lot of times you'll see people when they talk about ChatGPT or DeepSeek, they'll be like, yeah, it hallucinates. That's bad data. So when she said we're not where we need to be, it's because most of the data that they're using has not been cleaned, because a lot of companies, a lot of websites, most things, the data is not good. So if you take that and you then fast forward a bit to where you have this machine that is running and providing you answer-shaped objects, and you're like, they said Abraham Lincoln solved world hunger. And your teacher comes back and says, no, he didn't. You know what I mean? So if we apply that to medicine, do you understand how dangerous that can be? It can kill people because we're using data that is wrong. Not least of all, the coding that goes into like implicit biases. We have a whole training around why, as a coder, you shouldn't understand, like, you can't impart if you're a white man, why you think you're better than black, like that type of stuff. So no, AI is not, and it won't be for a while, because it requires a level of effort, concerted effort, that no company, no person wants to do. We are just hoping and praying, and I'm saying this not on behalf of my company, but as someone who works with it, we are just hoping and praying that the problem solves itself without doing any level of like effort to fix it. So if we go forward in time and say, now we've got these this technology or this alien system that exists and is using that, again, it's very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous, because it just learns off of itself. And if I learn 3 + 3 = 9, and then I say 9 + 2 = 15, and then we go from there, my foundation is rotten. I can't use this. So
Yeah, so thank y'all for that. Well, I'm Black Stu Kid, were you gonna say something?
Yes, I was, because I just have a slightly different perspective, because I don't work in medicine and I don't work in tech, but I do work with college students, and because AI is on the rise and it's on college campuses, this is something that we talk about a lot. And with my students this summer in the summer program, we're talking about the ethics of AI, because it's here and we cannot ignore it. And so they're doing like a bunch of scenarios on how like AI impacts different industries. And one of them is the medical field. So I just was like reading this scenario that is written for these students and thinking about all of the different ways that they're going to approach this. And one of the things that I was thinking about is like, the thing with AI, which has already been said by Melanie, is like it's going to have all of the same biases that its creators do, and because its creators are human, we know that it's going to be racist, sexist, etc. And what I think is interesting about the Owen Collie is that they're really coming into this with no understanding of the human race and no initial understanding of our hierarchy. And as they are learning out of pure curiosity. Well, maybe I won't say pure curiosity because they want something out of this too, but they're starting from a zero in which no human can. And so I think it's really interesting because in some ways, as we like think about AI and how it impacts medicine, we'd probably do a little bit better if we took their kind of understanding of it and how they're approaching it, like really deeply studying it and sharing it and talking to like, the other Oloys about it and like what they what they're seeing what's happening inside the human body. But they also have like generations and generations and generations that they're building off of in a way that we don't necessarily have. But we're also in it for like the money. And like I think that that's really the big blinder for AI and humanity is like the economy and how much money it's making people and how famous they can get and how much prestige that they can have. And that changes how we are approaching advancement in medicine.
Can I also really quickly say, because I just made a TikTok about this. This is so silly. I had this thought, it was based off of some meeting I was in, that if we consider AI as in like, I guess the equivalent is like the usage of AI is equivalent to the slaves building their own ship to cross the Atlantic. Because the thinking is that you're going to use this thing, it's going to make you more productive, it's going to solve your problems, you're going to do less work. Like capitalism requires more growth. It's a very unnatural phenomenon, unique in the world. And so with that, it does mean that eventually, not even eventually, currently we are constructing our own demise. So if we apply that to what is close to us recently, which is our crossing the Atlantic, it would be equivalent to the slaves building their own shit, right? And if we say in the future, the intersectionality of what AI is for the Louis, whatever they're called, child, the OOs, the 3 O's, like we don't know, at least in this book, what that means, because if they are currently the head of the table compared to these aliens, and they get the final say, and they can just have free will with the beings that they capture, that power tends to like infiltrate the mind. It tends to infiltrate because power structures need that. If I can do this, who are you to say what I can't do? Again, backwards says, power structure said, if they could have convinced us, not even convinced us, but forced us to build our own ships, what would that have been? And we go forward, if these beings using artificial intelligence that's steeped in incorrect data, steeped in implicit biases, they already know they're better, they're already the hot shit. What does that mean? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, one thing I was wanting to say before Black Soup Kid spoke. I don't even remember what I was going to say, but Black Soup Kid brought up something to the effect of like they're learning from Ground Zero, the Owen Collie, and I just want to remind us that like when we get their interaction with Lilith, it's 50 years post her last awakening. So we don't really know how long they've been able to study humans, but it's 50 years from the last one. And I also want us to kind of think about the fact that every human is a learning model in some type of way, right? So they have a ton of data, right, on humans. And they know probably more about humanity and their world. I think there was a reference to that, they know about more about humanity than humans know about themselves, right? So they've been able to speed up the learning process, which, as Melanie is saying in the chat, is terrible. It is a scary thing. Yeah. So she's been with them. Thank you, Dahlia. She's been with them around 250 years when we meet her, but she hasn't aged because she's been awake, asleep, awake, asleep. And so her perspective is slightly different than Paul Tate, like Tina brought up, because he was able to grow with him, right? He was awake for a longer period of time. But then we also see the effects of that, right? When he meets another human, and we were kind of getting into that, right? That desire for humanity, that desire to be amongst one of your own. So, that's what I wanted to say. While Melanie was saying, like, we're not there yet, and Tachi was saying we're not there yet, I also want us to think about, like, Butler wrote this book in 1987, and we're almost like 40 years post the publication date. Can we get there? I guess that's the question. And I think that we'll go into some ethical, power tensions, but can we get there is what I'm interested in.
No. Sorry, I have so much to say about this because this is me. I actually have to present on Gen AI and comms tomorrow. No. So I will tell you this because this is after hours. The requirement that is needed to get there is something that we, time-wise, as humans, do not have. I'm pretty sure y'all know by now that it uses an excessive amount of water. Like, the water that it has, it goes one of two ways: either polluted, or it's evaporative water and we never see it again, or if they do see it, like, so there's this study, and I don't know if we're going to talk about it in our next release, that says we've accelerated the time for climate change. So we've got about 5 years left. So 2030, 5 years before we see nationwide droughts because the water will no longer be available. So that stuff we were seeing in Parable, where they had to pay and they was fighting for their lives, 5 years. So if you're in your 30s, you're not going to reach 40 before you are fighting against those on the Paratico drugs, if that exists. So what I'm saying is, in order to get to that level requires something we will not have, because funding will go to fending off those fighting to reach a fresh water source, or it'll go to funding.
Oh, Melanie, you cut out.
And when we were talking earlier about, like, funding for, like, medicine, like, we're going to need more money to keep people, at least maybe not alive, but working. They should be functioning enough to be the enslaved that we need them to be to meet capitalist needs. So we will never reach our full potential with AI because we've short-sighted ourselves too much right now to accelerate the you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. It was great, and now it's not so great.
Yeah. Okay. Taichi, you got some? You want to speak from the medical perspective?
No, I agree. Like, again, if we're using bad data, like Melanie says, and there is a lot of bad data, you can, like, which is not where you shouldn't do your research on Google. It's taken over by Meta now. A lot of false things. You can Google something one day and it's complete horseshit. So if we're going with bad data, but we have goal-directed standard, we have actual research papers and research that are saying otherwise, we won't use that. And another thing about research, when we're doing clinical trials and things like that, some cases, especially cases in the ICU, you can't actually have a good control group because ethically that is not right. You can't purposely poison someone or purposely give people cancer in order for you to have a randomized double-blind control trial. Or in the case of COVID, you can't take ventilators away from people just to do your studies. That's ethically unsound. So because we actually don't have the clean, raw data that AI needs in order to make informed decisions, I don't think so.
All right. All right. We're in the realm of science fiction. Okay. All right, let's go on to, got about 20 minutes here. Let's go on to smart infrastructure and ecological design on the Substack. It says part one of Dawn is rich with references to technological advancement and ecological balance. The Oankali ship, for instance, can be interpreted as a smart city. That's how I like to think about it. And their food system echoes ideas of smart agriculture. While there while there are inherent flaws in the Oankali model, how might their constructed society and the mirrored one that they plan to build on Earth benefit both humans and the environment?
We got some good stuff because I think they do really great as far as recognizing the importance of the environment and seeing themselves within, and we're all kin. I do wonder if they're lying to us about the state of the earth when they took us or took them, and the state of the earth currently, some hundreds of years later.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that in some way, if they get back, when the humans get back and they have to, they call it the Stone Age. I just think it means going back to indigenous practices, what that would look like, and if they would be able, those who do make it, or willing to navigate that, as the three O's Oankali have with their ship and their pseudo trees and all of that other stuff.
The Ulue.
Yeah, the one thing about, again, talking about the artificial environments and everything, I just find it when they talk about Earth, they mentioned that they didn't just restore Earth. They didn't just go down there and say, okay, we're going to make sure that all these animals or these trees and things that were indigenous to the Earth, that's all there. They have gone to Earth, at least that's how they're talking about it, and they have animals and plants that are dangerous to humans. So why would you do that? So if you're just saying you're going to restore Earth, you're going to get all of this stuff together, you're saving us, but you're intentionally making the environment we come from toxic to us.
Well, remember when he was conversing with Lilith and he said, "Hey, one day you all will go back, and we will basically enhance your immune system. But there are dangerous plants there. Your earth naturally grows it, but we will give you all the things that you need. We won't give you weapons, but we'll give you things you need to build, and we will enhance your immune system so that you won't,
Yeah,
die."
they say that, but they also are talking about, like she's talking about their foods she can't eat that they're gonna bring to Earth. So there's stuff. I
Oh, I
mean,
see. I see.
yeah, there's it's not there's dangerous stuff. Absolutely, that's just whatever. But that's not what they did. That's not how they what is it called? They transformed, they terraformed the planet. They made it into something different. So that because they also say the aliens are going to also go down to the planet. So they transformed or terraformed Earth not to suit humans, but to suit them.
Hmm.
So just that whole thing. So I don't know. It's just the smart everything. Like when they talk about the walls, and
Yeah.
again, I have to like separate myself from Star Trek and stuff. So
Yeah.
the the walls, everything is census around their DNA. It was coded to their the I don't know, oil, sweat, whatever it is that they release, and everything is controlled that way. So I mean, it's like I've been having a problem with the AI discussion because to me I see AI as technology and technology, and that's it. These aliens are bio and genetic, not necessarily AI, because AI is technology.
But can we see them as an intelligence?
Do I see the aliens as intelligent? They are highly intelligent,
Like an
but
intelligence.
organic intelligence.
Like an intelligent form, not as intelligent, but as a form of intelligence, right? And the only reason why I'm very interested in this is because this series written in the 80s began to push the bounds of a lot of things that in Butler's note, she is interested in technology. And the reason why I keep bringing it back is because her notes kind of show she's interested in the potential of technological advancements, though she's not around to see it. But in this question specifically, when I'm talking about ecology and smart cities, like there are a lot of conversations surrounding smart agriculture, smart cities, and all of these things to kind of help progress the human race. And I'm interested in how we're starting to see the ship kind of do this thing. Like the ship is growing its own food. The ship is smart. Thank you for the gifts. The ship is a living, breathing being,
Right.
and so they
Like in
grow this ship.
like in Farscape.
I don't know what that
So,
is.
see, okay. So I think that the ship is somewhat of a sentient being that they have grown in order for the same thing with the plants that they're used to keep people in hibernation and all the rest of it. They're using organic matter, organic animals to be able to do all of those things. And just like Tachi and Melanie was talking about, my background, I've done a lot of SaaS business and technology. The AI stuff, it really is get as much bad data as you can get, or as much data as you can get, put it in there, let people play around with it. It's gonna come up with answers, and then you just keep going. You rinse and repeat. So if you know the data is dirty, you just go with it. You just go with it, and you hope that others, as they're using your technology, will correct it, and then it will. That's what it is. But from a money standpoint, you can't do anything other than that. It costs too much to clean the data. You won't be able to get it done. Blah 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 blah.
Okay.
And to me, that's tied to the idea of a smart home or whatever. It is just using that same bad data to have different functions. And to me, I see a complete separation from when we think about smart homes or smart situations versus the organic intelligence that we're talking about in this book.
Yeah, and I think that even when we're thinking about technology now, we have touch screens, we got palm readers. Well, not palm readers. You can put your fingerprint on your car to open your car. Like there are all of these ways in which that technology is functioning, or what I think how technology is functioning that Butler isn't imagining in this book. Like Lilith has to touch the wall for it to open, right? Or she has to put this image up for it to for the body to respond to it. The houses that they live in the trees, right? They respond to touch. So the walls are alive. Like everything is alive. And I'm just very fascinated that Butler could think up a world like that in the 80s.
Same. And I have a question. Because it's living and breathing. So when they do eventually die, do they go back to the ship? Are they buried so the ship can consume it? Is that why it's so skin-like? Why it's so, you know what I'm saying?
We're gonna have to finish the text because your answer is in part 2.
Okay, but you guys, but you know what? But I will say this: it's not that uncommon for her to think about this, because that's what sci-fi has always like. The notions of these things are like living ships, or these things are organic, in terms of sci-fi literature, that was very prominent at the time. There was a lot of this kind of like advanced technology or advanced understanding or organic things that were going to have this organic intelligence that were going to be able to do this. Like it was in a lot of books, in a lot of books, a lot of movies and other stuff there. And when you get into the 90s, especially, you have television series and everything that talk about stuff like, oh, the plant can think, or they can, it can do all of this stuff. So the thing that was unusual at the time that she wrote this book that stands out, I mean, her stories are fantastic, is the fact that Black women are centered.
Yeah.
Because generally it would not be, Black people would not be involved. You could be any other color but Black, and you would be involved. But the idea of it being, cybernetics or some sort of genes, or you could, have grow other limbs, all of those kind of things were always there.
And I also want to know if the humans were killed purposefully and put in that ship.
Yes, they were, because
I want to know why the ship's so alive. I gotta know it. I think they're doing something. There's something fishy. Don't like it, but it's very cool. It's very, very cool. I'm on board. But they feeding humans to that shit. That's all I gotta say about it.
In order for them to reproduce, these aliens, in order for them to reproduce, they have to have new genetic material. They've said this in this part of the book. They go from planet to planet, trading. I'm putting that in quotation marks. Y'all can't see me with the big quotation marks. Trading, making a trade, and they go from one population to the next. And they probably have learned the best way to get as much as they possibly need in order for them to be able to reproduce is to go someplace where they not going to get any pushback. So a planet that has basically damaged itself, crazy like, they can go in and they can pick up everybody they want to and bring them to their ship and then put them in the plants and then play with them and do the experiment. Get a doctor or somebody say, are we doing this right? Are we doing whatever? And then come up and be like, okay, now I got a 14-year-old boy who I'm going to just basically torture. Like they don't believe that. Yeah, just yeah.
Can I just say there's a theory in science fiction, also in like regular science, it's the dark forest theory, which means that like if you saw the three body problem, I think it touches on it.
Yep.
Essentially, it's saying that the universe is comprised of the hunter and the prey. And the hunter is the one that stalks and you don't see it. The prey, think of those as the planets that make it a point to send out radio signals saying, hey, we're here, come find us, we'd love to meet you. I think that the triple O's, they're the hunters. And they are under the guise of like, again, nothing is really truly altruistic in the universe. They are under the guise of we saved you from yourselves. But to your point that you just made, it's not really a saving of us, because if they really wanted to save us, they would have made it so that our planet could be habitable for us after we bombed it to smithereens. But they didn't do that. They plucked us, they took us and they put us captive so that they could then go out and like make themselves better. So these are the hunters, but instead of them being the hunters that you think of when you see like those with the bows and arrows or the pew pew machines, they're more sinister because they come under the guise of we care, we wanted to save you, we're here to help, we're here to make sure you progress. And that's not the case. Our progress is at as far as they are willing to allow it, and it's really dependent upon their success as a continuing like species. And that to me is more nefarious.
But also on the flip side, why should they trust us with anything? Look what we did.
They destroyed yourself.
Well, they don't.
Exactly, because they don't trust us. They think we're
They don't
disgusting.
trust us. Yeah, they think that we're stupid.
Right.
They think
And
that
I understand that. Like I
we're like
understand that, but also
stupid.
that's messed up. I get it.
That we're stupid and we're violent, but there is something about us that they want, which is which is why they kidnapped us from the dying earth, quote unquote, in the first place. But since we have spent so much time in Octavia Butler's head, as Dr. Bree likes to say, I have to point out that, well, I have to ask, do we think that these aliens, do we think that gene trading for them is their nature? Or do we think that
Yes.
that's just, or are they just saying that they do that, but they're really nefarious? Because while I read this text, it reminds me a lot of Mary's pattern. And it also reminds me a lot of the organism from Clay's Ark. How the organism in Clay's Ark made those people spread it, and they couldn't help it, whether they wanted to spread it or not. The gene altered them and made them want to do that. So I'm curious to know if the Owen Kali, are they just on some Doro shit? Like, do they just want to like splice up genes and create this perfect race? Or is it their actual genetic makeup that makes them do this, like the organism from Clay's Ark?
I think it's a both and. It's a both and because it's not an either or. It's not a binary way, particularly because us as humans, we would do the same thing if we give it enough time. Um, and really, truly, and because of the sentence that I keep thinking about of like our planet, we left it, we wouldn't recognize it, we moved on. Like, progress is inherent in the known universe. As much as a thing or a species or a being can, it will evolve. Now, what that evolution looks like is completely dependent on like a luck of the draw. Nothing is known. It's a crapshoot. Yet it has to happen. So there has to happen is at the expense of humanity. So yeah, they're like, we saved you. Yeah, they're like, we trade, because to them it is a trade. Like, they're trading their livelihood for us, or our livelihood, and they're also learning, right? So each of the three O's get something from the primitive species that they capture and mixed with. I can't think of the A word, but they get something from it, and that is what technically, if we're keeping it a bug, they are truly doing what evolution does, but they've really perfected it to a science. They've made it so that they can pick and choose what they want to keep and what they want to get rid of. Whereas for the rest of us, it's kind of like the jaybird sings because it has to call. And the human walks because one day somebody stood up and thought it was a great idea, even though it's technically terribly, it doesn't matter. So that's what happens. They've got like some beings in their society that's like, let's do it on our own. It's a both and.
I got some information to kind of help us ease us into this, because I already know what time we on tonight. 1996 interview with Stephen Potts. He says he asked a question. I think I'm gonna read two of the passages. He says, while teaching the books in my university classes, and he's referring to the books we're reading today, I've encountered a disagreement over which species comes off worse, the humans or the Oankali. Humanity has this hierarchical flaw, particularly in the male, but the Oankali are the ultimate users, adapting not only the entire human genome for its own purposes, but ultimately destroying the planet for all other life as well. Are we supposed to see a balance of vices here? Butler says both species have their strengths and weaknesses. You have small groups of violent humans, but we don't see all humans rampaging as a result of their contradiction. For the most part, the Oankali do not force or rush humans into mating, but try to bring them along gradually. Here's the second question. In the case of both humans and Oankali, you offer socio-biological arguments for behavior. Humans are bent towards destroying themselves and others, and the Oankali are biologically driven to co-opt the genome of other species and to literally rip off their biospheres. Do you largely accept socio-biological principles? Butler says, some readers see me as totally socio-biological, but it's not true. I do think we need to accept that our behavior is controlled to some extent by biological forces. Sometimes a small change in the brain, for instance, just a few cells, can completely alter the way a person or animal behaves. I read these because one, we were debating about, who do we think the Oankali are? Are they good? Are they bad? What are they doing? And apparently they are ripping off humanity in a way, but there is a trade because humans are unable to unalive themselves and in the fastest ways possible. We also see that Butler is interested in biology. Is it the environment or is it biological factors that drive people to do what they do? These are some of the questions that this text is about to start asking. We don't get to see that in part 1, but we will see it in part 2.
I just have to add, I don't trust these aliens, but that's what makes the text so uncomfortable, because it's like they essentially kidnapped Lilith, but they're also telling her that the earth was dying. And then like they operated on her without consent, but they fixed her cancer. So, and I feel like and then every time she starts asking too many questions, they get quiet. So from when I'm reading it, I'm like, if y'all think that this is, if what you're doing is all good, why can't you just tell the truth about it?
Well,
They know it's not good. Look at Paul. They know he was crazy. They knew
I
he
ain't
was
got to
crazy.
I ain't got to the part with Paul yet, y'all.
So remember though, Lilith said that, and this is where they get into it about family and consent. And she says, you kept him away from his own kind. So of course he goes crazy, and I'm not excusing his behavior towards Lilith. But did you hear the words that he said after? Like, you said I can keep her. You said that I can have her. So they have kept him away from humanity, kept him away from his people, and then when she rejects him, he doesn't know how to deal with it. No excuse. No excuse. No excuse.
I mean, honestly, what they did to that weird ass plant that they growing the people in, and then it's like it starts with the plant. Like, so they started with the plant, and then they go move on to people. Then they go move on to this person, that person, and then it's gonna be you. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't. And yeah, like the plant was carnivorous and it was eating people or whatever, but that was that plant's nature. So who are you, Owen Kali people? Like, who are y'all to come down and tell this plant you're wrong, you're bad?
On that note, we are out of time, y'all. We will finish Dawn part 2.
Again, Doro, that's all I'm gonna say.
We're not gonna deal with this.
Aliens are Doro.
We're
Doro
not.
was the bad guy. He's still the bad guy. I'm on
The
time.
aliens are Doro, though.
Yes.
More advanced Doro.
They all Doro.
The aliens is Doro 2.0. The aliens doing what Doro couldn't do.
Exactly.
Please let that man rest.
No, never.
Why? He's everywhere.
Lord, let that man go. We done read so many books. He been gone.
Nah, these aliens is him.
He won't die, so we can't let him.
die.
Like,
No.
he won't
won't
die.
let the nigga go.
Sir
I mean, the
Maxim
ninja
said
go.
Doro's my bad ex. No. Good night. I'll see y'all next Wednesday.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.